Ethics and Society, Making Ethical Arguments, Part 2.
It's refreshment time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building. Every item a fresh, appetizing taste treat.
We've a large assortment of freshly made sandwiches. How about a pizza? None better anywhere. Sizzling hamburgers grilled to your taste. Mouth-watering chili dillies.
Dog days, hot dog days that is, somehow have a way of turning out to be fun days. The pop and sizzle of the juicy meat seems to say, "Come and get me, I'm done to a turn." Yep, hungry or not, it's hard to resist the tantalizing aroma and taste appeal of a sizzling hot dog. The nice part of it is, there's one waiting for you right now at the refreshment stand.
Okay. Now pause, go get your food. And while you're in the kitchen, can you get me one of those chili dillies? Okay. So this is part 2, and the title for part 2 is Being Principled. All right, and so hopefully as we go through, we'll see why that is an important thing to talk about for part 2. Right? Last video we learned about facts and principles. Those are what we base our arguments on. And so here we're going to talk more about principles. Okay, so one of the best ways to learn to do something is to just try doing it. Just start being ethical. Start trying to make ethical arguments about what is morally right or morally wrong. And the more you do it, the more insight you will gain into ethics. Okay, so what are we going to jump in and talk about? We're going to talk about smoking. Is smoking morally wrong? And more importantly, should we ban all smoking? Right? Are we justified in doing that? We're going to have to see what kind of arguments we can come up with around smoking. And I'm talking about smoking in a very general sense. Cigarettes, could be marijuana, and I'm not going to specify it. I just want to leave it open. Okay, so I'm going to be honest with you here. I don't like smoking. I kind of hate smoking. Cigarettes, marijuana, it does not matter. I can't stand the smell. It physically repulses me when I smell it. And I've got a problem. This is a fact. My neighbor smokes, and the smoke comes into my apartment. And it drives my whole family mad. All right, so we've got a little backstory here from Professor Kravitz. So I feel like we should ban smoking. And actually, most of the people in my apartment feel the same way. But should we? Is smoking morally wrong? Is banning smoking the morally right course of action? Right? Just because I feel like we should ban smoking does not justify banning smoking. Right? I need a better argument than just my feelings if I'm going to persuade or convince myself or anyone else. Right? So that's why we take ethics. That's why we're here, trying to learn how to come up with a better argument than just I feel this. Okay, so we're going to sort this all out by doing ethics, and we're going to be looking at different arguments based on the different main traditional ethical theories in Western philosophy that we have studied in this course. And if you have not studied them and you're watching this video, I'm going to go over these principles as we go through the different theories. And if you just forgot them, well, you'll be reminded as we get to each theory. Okay, so when we study an ethical theory, we learn about the principles that someone holding that theory would hold on to and live by. These are the rules that they've chosen for themselves. And these rules, these principles, are tools, right? We use them to help us navigate life, the specific instances that we find ourselves, the specific questions that we have to decide. We can use these principles, which are not specific, right? They're general, to see how it can help us come to a conclusion. So these principles are really important, and every time we study a different theory, we learned the different principles of that theory. And so now we're seeing those principles as tools that we can use to help us in life make better decisions. Okay, I did not get my chili dilly yet, so we need to take a break, and you need to go get that for me. All right, so what do we use these tools for? We use it to answer the big questions of ethics. And the big questions are questions like, what should I do? Right? What's the good action here, the morally good action? Or what should be my goal? Right? What's the morally good end? And what kind of person should I be? Right? What does it mean to have good character? Right? So we can use all these principles to answer all these different questions. There's one small problem, right? We've studied all these different ethical theories, and the small problem is that we can't use just any principle we've learned over the course of this class. And so why can't I just pick and choose which rules, which theories which principles from different theories I want to have? Well, this is why. There's contradictions that emerge if we try to mix the different ethical theories that we've studied. So let's look at 3 core principles. Here's one that is a core principle for any deontological ethics, and it's the principle of duty. We do what is morally right just because it is morally right, the morally right thing to do, regardless of the consequences, right? It doesn't matter what's going to happen. If there's something that's morally right, then that's what I have to do. Or if it's morally wrong, I can't do it, regardless of what happens. In fact, don't even think about what the consequences might be. Just do what's right and don't do what's wrong. So that's the principle of duty. Put that next to the principle of utility, which is a core consequentialist principle. That principle says the morally right thing to do is that which brings about our moral goals, the consequences we want. So the first one says don't think about the consequences, just look at the action, determine whether it's right or wrong, and do what is right because it's right, and don't do what's wrong because it's wrong. But our second principle says no, make all your decisions based on the consequences. The right thing to do is whatever gives you the best consequence. So one of those has to be false if we put them in the same argument. So if we make an argument that uses deontological principles and consequentialist principles, we've got a problem. And finally, we have the principle of character, and this is a core virtue ethics principle. And here the principle is there is no universally moral right thing to do or universally moral right goal, consequence. Just be a morally good person. So the principle of character is also going to contradict both of the other core principles. So essentially, these three ethical theories, and actually each of these theories has different versions, they can't all coexist because they contradict each other, and we can't have contradictions in our arguments. So, what does this tell us? It tells us when we make an argument, we have to pick which theory we're going to base it on, which set of principles we're going to use as part of our justification to support our conclusion. We can't just pick and choose willy-nilly our principles, right? We have to make a consequentialist argument, like the utilitarian argument, or we have to make a deontological argument, like an argument based purely in divine command theory or Kantian formalism. So it means we have to kind of, when we're talking about smoking now, we have to divide up our thinking, our arguments into the different principles. So now the next three parts of this video series is going to take each of these different types of ethical theories one at a time. We're going to start with the consequentialist ethics, and we're going to look at some of the different types of consequentialist ethics and how they would argue for or against banning smoking. All right, I will see you soon.